Every legacy has a story. Every story leaves a mark. This is Legacy Ledger.
The deal most people would have taken. In 1997, a small British publisher printed 500 copies of a children's book. 500. That's fewer copies than some authors sell to friends and family. A year later, an American studio called. They wanted to make it into a movie. They offered a life-changing sum of money, and they wanted something in return. Creative control. J.K. Rowling said no. She walked away from the table. Not once, but repeatedly. Most people think Rowling became wealthy because Harry Potter was popular. The real story is about what she refused to give away, and understanding that refusal changes everything about how you think about wealth. What nobody tells you about the rejections. You've heard the story. 12 publishers rejected Harry Potter. What you probably haven't heard is the less flattering version. Several of those rejections weren't blind. Rowling had an agent, Christopher Little, who was himself rejected by numerous agencies before one took a chance on the manuscript. So the famous 12 rejections number is actually the second round. Before Rowling faced rejection, her representative faced rejection, trying to find someone who would even read it. That means the actual chain of doubt was longer than the story usually tells. But statistics don't capture what rejection feels like. Every rejection letter arrived, carrying the same message. Not good enough, not marketable enough, not worth betting on. Imagine spending years building a world inside your head, only to watch strangers dismiss it in seconds. Page after page, envelope after envelope. No social media audience, no fans, no proof. Just a manuscript and a growing pile of reasons to quit. And then came one of the lowest periods of her life. A struggling single mother, living on limited financial support, trying to build a future while raising a child. There were days when the gap between the life she wanted and the life she had felt impossible to cross. Yet every time reality gave her a reason to stop, she opened the manuscript again. And here's the detail that reframes everything. Bloomsbury, the publisher that finally said yes, only agreed because the 8-year-old daughter of the chairman read the first chapter and demanded the rest. A child saved Harry Potter, not a publishing executive, not a market analyst, not a focus group. A child who simply couldn't stop reading. That's worth remembering the next time an expert tells you or your idea has no market. The rock bottom moment. Most success stories skip the uncomfortable parts. This one shouldn't. Before Harry Potter became a global phenomenon, it was a stack of paper sitting beside unpaid bills. Rowling would often write while caring for her daughter, squeezing work into moments most people would use to recover from exhaustion. The future owner of one of the most valuable literary properties in history looked nothing like success. No investors, no audience, no guarantees, just uncertainty. Think about that for a moment. The wizarding world was already worth billions. Nobody knew it yet. Not the publishers, not the agents, not the critics, not even Rowling. The asset existed long before the market recognized it. And that's one of the hardest realities of creating anything valuable. The world often rewards it last. The surprising deal she actually made. Here's where the commonly told story goes wrong. Most people assume Rowling negotiated brilliantly from the start and retained control of everything. The truth is more complicated and more instructive. She sold the film rights to Warner Brothers in 1999 for a reported £1 million. By most measures, that's a good deal. But by the scale of what Harry Potter became, it was modest. The films alone went on to gross nearly $7.7 billion at the worldwide box office. So where did Rowling's real leverage come from? Not from the film rights she sold, from the rights she never sold. Publishing rights, stage rights, the rights to Harry Potter and the Cursed Child. Significant influence over the wizarding world's literary future. The lesson isn't that she was a perfect negotiator from day one. The lesson is that she understood which assets were worth protecting, and she protected those specifically. Most people, when offered £1 million, don't stop to ask, "What am I not selling?" Rowling asked that question. The number that changes the story. Everyone cites the franchise valuation. Here's a statistic that reveals the true scale. The Harry Potter books have sold more than 600 million copies worldwide, but the broader franchise has generated well over $25 billion in revenue. To put that into perspective, Harry Potter has generated more revenue than many multinational corporations. A story written by one person became an economic engine, larger than entire industries. And consider this, the world has roughly 1.5 billion children, aged 5 to 17. That means a substantial portion of the planet's young population has grown up with Harry Potter. That's not a publishing success. That's cultural infrastructure. The books didn't just sell, they became the shared language of a generation. And here's the insight almost nobody says out loud. Rowling didn't build a franchise, she built a ritual. Midnight release parties, sorting hat quizzes, house rivalries, annual rereads. These aren't consumer behaviors, they're rites of passage. And once a story becomes a rite of passage, it stops competing with entertainment. It becomes part of growing up. The counterintuitive wealth lesson. Everyone points to Harry Potter as a story about persistence paying off. But there's a subtler lesson hiding underneath. Rowling didn't become extraordinarily wealthy simply because she persisted. She became wealthy because she persisted on something that could scale without her. A doctor can serve more patients, a lawyer can take more clients, a consultant can bill more hours. But all of those models eventually hit a ceiling. A story doesn't. The same book can be read by a child in London on Monday and a child in Mumbai on Tuesday. Neither reading requires another hour of Rowling's time. Her labor was front-loaded. Her returns were back-loaded and enduring. This isn't unique to Rowling. It's the architecture behind many great fortunes. The wealthy don't just work harder. They build things where the work happens once and the return happens many times. What happened after the last book? The final Harry Potter novel was published in 2007. Rowling stopped writing Harry Potter. But Harry Potter did not stop earning. Theme parks opened, stage productions launched, new films expanded the universe, television adaptations were announced, and in 2023, Hogwarts Legacy sold more than 22 million copies within its first year. 22 million for a video game based on a world whose final main novel had been published 16 years earlier. That is the power of a durable asset. The story people loved at age 9 still matters at age 35. The difference is that 35-year-olds have far more purchasing power. The emotional connection remained. The economic value followed. The real beginning. Here's the fact most motivational versions quietly omit. Rowling didn't create Harry Potter during her hardest years. She conceived the idea in 1990 on a delayed train from Manchester to London. Before the rejection, before the financial hardship, before life became complicated. The idea aura arrived when life was ordinary. The hardship came later, which means this isn't really a story about adversity creating genius. It's a story about refusing to abandon an idea when adversity arrives. Anyone can feel inspired. Far fewer people can carry an idea through years of uncertainty and still believe it deserves to exist. That quality may be the single greatest predictor of whether an idea ever reaches the world. The question worth sitting with. Let's return to those 500 copies. 500. That's where this story began. Not with billions, not with theme parks, not with movies. Just 500 copies sitting on bookstore shelves. Today, hundreds of millions of Harry Potter books exist around the world. But every one of them traces back to that tiny first printing. 500. That's how ownership compounds. Quietly, slowly, almost invisibly. One reader becomes 10. 10 become 1,000. 1,000 become millions. And eventually the thing everyone overlooked becomes impossible to ignore. Rowling didn't know any of this was coming. She couldn't have. But she wrote the book anyway. She protected what she could. She said no when it mattered. And she held on to enough ownership to participate in the upside. The most powerful financial question isn't, how much can I earn this year? It's, what am I building that will still matter 20 years from now? Because income pays once, assets pay again and again, and sometimes the thing that starts as 500 copies becomes a world. This is Legacy Ledger, where we look past the headline number to find the decision underneath it. Income pays once, assets pay forever, but only if you keep them.